Welcome everyone to this Tierlist update. It's patch 9.02. I'm sorry it took a while for me to do so. I had a lot of stuff to do. And now I finally did it. Yesterday I updated all my tier lists, the units, the mastermind options, and the legion spells. And now in this update video, it's going to be two parts. In this part, we're going to focus on the units. And in the next part, we're going to focus about mastermind options and about the legion spells. Once again, you see the tier list here. It's once again linked in the description. Overall, you will have the master sheet access to all my tier lists. You will always see when I last updated them and at the top what patch it currently is. I'm sorry for that. And I will now go through some points in the tier list that have changed, that are significant, and why they are on a certain spot. First of all, you might see some difference in the S tier. There's mainly two things. First of all, we have the gate now showing up in the S tier, and I think gate is one of the best, probably the best late game unit you have at the moment, because between 16 and 18 gates, if you play them correctly, we have in the best case a buff, but also if you just have 3 hell gates, which are the big gates, you're almost unleakable if you're somewhat on value. So those units are really strong in those waves, and even this massive weak waves the gates had before they got changed 2 patches ago was 19, and even that is not as critical anymore because gates now summon faster, and therefore 19 isn't as strong against the gates anymore, even though the typing is still not perfect. That's why gates are very high rated at the moment. Games are still going way later into the game than they used to be, so late game units are obviously very strong at the moment, and gate definitely one of them. Boneburger making its appearance in S tier, and it's actually rated, in my opinion, as the highest unit overall. Why is that? Bone Crusher opener is still a very strong opener. If you have Cash Out, it's one of the best 6 worker openers you have. Overall, 5 worker opener with Bone Crusher, there's plenty of options with Gargoyle, with Cat, just with Fire Archer, with any other unit that is around 40-50 gold. So there's a lot of Bone Crusher opening options. You have the Dark Mage that is significantly OP with certain units like a Halo, a Doomsday, Doppels, any other hardcore DPS carry. And you do obviously have the Fire Archer, which is a great unit for wave 4 especially. So that is why, in my opinion, it is rank 1 for me. And one thing I want to focus on is the Growl. I always have rated the Growl quite high, and it has been S tier up until last patch. I was still having it in S tier, then yesterday evening I discussed with Widdison and King Duns, and I thought I probably overrated Growl a bit, and then I was like thinking about it. And I do have to agree. Tier 6 openers aren't a thing anymore. You do not have those power tier 6 openers. Especially Aqua was always the go-to unit, and since Growl is now leaking a lot more in wave 2 against the Snailson, so you barely leave it alone unless you want to play mind games, it's not that strong anymore. So in this case, I think Growl isn't as good anymore. Aqua wasn't the best opener lately, even though I still think if you can manage to hold your Aqua, this is quite OP. Apart from this, most tier 6 openers aren't worth it. That's why Growl now somewhere in the middle of A tier. Once again, remember, at maximum the first 3 and last 3 units are sorted. All the ones in the middle are just random, and they might look different to you than for me because there's a randomizer in them. Alright. The best unit in A tier is the red. And maybe if you're following from my tier list, you might have seen the journey from the red going from C tier over to B tier last patch, I think, and now A tier. Why is that? Games tend to go very long, right? You have probably seen, if you're interested in pro play of Legion GD2, you have seen a lot of high elo players are spamming reds for the late mid game and late game. So since there's long saves currently happening often, you will just have, like, let's say 7 reds, and you treasure hunt them for 3 waves because you know there's a percent gonna be on 18, 19. So you do not decrease your value with workers, but you do it with reds. So they're a lot more flexible now, since they're now granting you 11 with them. It's a lot more worth it, and their stats got buffed on top, so all those 3 factors buff the red significantly or just increase the position of the red. Elite Archers just got a buff. They have been okay, I think, previously, but now with the buff, they seem pretty strong. So that's why Elite Archers and Trinity Archers appear. Obviously, they're best paired with APS, right? Without APS, they're okay. They're probably above average, but with APS, they're really strong. So always make sure to buff them with an APS. Same unit as the Doomsday, right? Doomsday APS is for sure one of the best combos you can have at the moment. The Doomsday still a decent unit for 14, even though it has been better on that wave previously. But yeah, Doomsday, especially with APS, a very nice combo you can play for the late game once again. Doomsday, one of the best units to cover wave 17 actually. And yeah, overall, a unit that is fighting back its ranks. I think this position in A can only be made if you combine it with APS, right? But the thing about Doomsday is you mainly play it with APS. Like, I would say in at least 50% of the cases where you play Doomsday, you play it together with APS because you basically pick those units together. And I think you can therefore position it right there. Units that are still value high are, for example, the Tempest and the Steed. They're A tier, somewhere in between. Especially Tempest is this focus unit because you had all those strong combos. You have Tempest Mask, which is okay with certain combos. You have the Halo, especially with Tempest. Steed Halo is broken as hell. So if you have the Halo Tempest Steed, you have basically no chance to die on 18, 19, 20 plus if you are somewhat on a decent value. And what most of you might wonder about is, what about the new unit? So let's have a quick look at the Sea Dragon and later on the Lifeworker. Now I ranked them in roundabout average A. So they're an above average unit. Why is that the case? Especially when the win rates say something totally different. Jules, one of the developers, posted some win rates of the Sea Dragon a few days into the patch, and they have been all below 50%. I think it was always in the ELO ranges 2.2 plus, 2.4 plus, and I think 2k plus. They've all been around 48%, especially with the highest skill group, 2.4k plus, actually having the worst win rate out of all of them. Why is that the case, and why do I still value them so high? First of all, this was quite early into the patch, so I think people didn't quite know how to play them yet. Second, I think people are over-prioritizing this unit sometimes. Especially the upgrade. Upgrading a Lifebinder to a Sea Dragon to a Lifebinder, I'm sorry, shouldn't be done too early, because a Lifebinder will heal for 600 HP. And if you do not have a unit that can work with those 600 HP, it's just never going to heal, so it's never going to use its power. This is why I think it is a very high skilled unit, because you always have to find the right mixture of Sea Dragons and units it can actually apply the buff on. So be aware, in case you're not sure if you should build another Sea Dragon or not, rather build it not. You have more tanks. This one or the few Sea Dragons you already have can heal, and not over prioritize them because they can't buff each other. But apart from that, why is Sea Dragon that strong? First of all, it starts with an effective HP of 1000. It has 900 HP, it heals for 200, and it loses 100 in stats. So this is an effective HP of 1000, which has a very good HP per gold value already. And with more heals, this is gonna skyrocket. Second of all, you can go for infinite heals. This is my tips and tricks of the current situation, patch, whatever. You see it here, buff it with a Butcher, it's gonna have infinite heals, because as it is dropping to 1 HP, which you never get less with the last heal, it won't heal anymore unless it has more than 1 HP. So with the Butcher, it's gonna heal up to more than 1 HP again. and then just gonna heal for 200, but you only lose, I don't know, 50 HP in reverse, not 100 anymore. So you have infinite heals, and actually it is quite strong like this. Once again, don't over prioritize them, but if you have Butcher anyway in your role, that's pretty insane. Alright. I want to pick out some more key units right there. I think you can have a look at the tier list yourself and just discuss with me what you think about it. I would be happy to have a discussion about a unit rather than just somebody telling me that this tier list is trash. I can still understand that some of you might have another opinion, which is totally fine. So let's discuss it either in the YouTube comments or in my stream. I'm really happy and interested to see what your opinions are. But a few more units I want to pick out here and explain my position. We have the Infiltrator B tier. Infiltrator is actually a quite strong unit, but it is B tier because it got nerfed quite a bit now. The Infiltrator and the Orchid. But the thing is, it is still very strong if you use it correctly. And when you use it correctly, for waves where you can make the boost efficient, 13, 18, 15, those are waves where you can use this boost to a maximum and really like do effective clutch holds with it. The boosts are the OP part about the Infiltrator and the Orchid. The stats alone are really bad, especially for the early game. The early game Infiltrator and Orchid got nerfed, while the boosts are the actual problem or the actual OP factor of this Orchid. Just imagine a wave 13, a wave 18, where you have, let's say, 3 Orchids on wave 13, right? You full boost them, you almost kill 2 units. So you do not have to fight against 6 creeps anymore, but only against 4. Isn't that easy? Sure. That's why Infiltrator is a very strong unit. I actually moved Shroom a bit up. I think it was C tier last patch. Why is that the case? Shroom is getting better, especially with the Life Binder. Shroom's being the only unit where the Life Binder can use its heal immediately right when the wave starts, and therefore increases the chance of getting out more heals, which is always going to be a plus in HP. The trade-off, you lose 100, you gain 200, is obviously always good for you. Apart from this, Shroom Lifebinder combo in the early game are very strong together, especially if you have like a Bard. You have basically a cover for the first 9 waves, so that's quite nice. Shroom on top of this is still a good 5-worker opener, and since 5-worker openers are always liked, Shroom is the one to go for, especially since Windhawk is not holding it. Talking about Windhawk, we had Windhawk. We know the Violet is not really amazing at the moment. The Windhawk was a good start though, especially with having Tempest Windhawk. But since the Windhawk is not holding one anymore, not even against No Snail, the unit is significantly worse. You cannot do Flying Force anymore with Windhawk opener and then into Tempest because you're going to lose too much gold. With most Mastermind options, obviously YOLO should still work out. I think YOLO just exactly hits the value. But apart from this, you will always have to add, and therefore you would have to start Windhawk Tempest, for example, which is obviously a much lower push that you don't want to have. Violet is not at all in an amazing spot, so you can't really rely on that either. So that is why Windhawk is actually one of the worst CT units. Next in the list is Aqua. And you might think like, I play so many Aqua openers, I see so many people play Aqua openers, why is Aqua C tier here? And this is quite easy to explain. Aqua opener is still in a very nice spot, don't get me wrong. The first 4 waves with Aqua, fine. You can push quite hard, you have a decent chance of holds almost always. And even if you leak, you shouldn't leak too much in the first 4 waves. But then there comes wave number 5. And a Hermit on 5 is not too uncommon in terms of the threshold for getting 80 mythic. But a Hermit on 5 can actually cause big problems against an Aqua Spirit. Depending on what you have, you usually lack a lot of single target damage because you invest a lot in the Aqua, then you have a tank, you protect yourself on wave 3 and 4 a bit with, So you likely single target damage, and the Hermit is obviously going to abuse this part, just going to heal back the splash damage the Aqua is dealing, and therefore countering the Aqua quite hard on wave 5. Aqua isn't amazing on 6 either if it's getting sniped too early or if it is just not having the right supportive units. It's not dealing a lot of damage. I mean, it's still a pierce damage dealer, right? 7 and 8. Aqua used to be good on those waves, but especially 8. I don't know if you've seen Aqua on 8 perform against a mole. You usually don't see it because the Aqua is dying and the wave is usually almost a full league if you have like a strong send and the build is not 100% against this. And even if you have sometimes Bunk Aqua combo, which usually was the absolute safe hold for like a 200 send a long time ago, is now really weak and it will leak to Hermit Wolf. So Aqua, their early game power they had once is gone, and they're not even good in mid or late game anymore. So Environmental Opener, fine, still very strong. Rogue Wave for later buffs on Starcaller, for example, fine, still strong. Everything else about Aqua's, trash. Alright. And then the last units I want to comment about in this video. First of all, the Flower, sorry, marked the wrong one. Same as Aqua. Why is Flower so low rated even though it has a very strong opener? Yes, Flower opener is strong, especially if we have with Aquas together because you can push quite aggressive. But then there's still this wave 5 where you can get punished and wave 6 with the Hermit. And always be aware of the fact, Flower is an AoE unit, right? So in the most cases, either you leak the whole wave or you hold. But the problem is, since Mole and Hermit are both units you can afford in the early game, they're both units they're likely to get afforded in the early game. And if you receive those units, it's pretty common that you leak the whole wave. First of all, you leak the whole wave, really bad for you, you don't want to do that. Because you lose too much gold, you lose king HP, and it's throwing you way far behind than you want to be. Second of all, the nice push in the first few waves will be slowed down because you're gonna have those tough waves 6, 7, 8 where the Flower is really weak, and then once again there comes 10 for example. So in the first few waves, in the first 4 or 5 waves, maybe you have quite a high push, but then you need the right ads to keep up your push, and those ads are never more AoE because then you're just gonna fail on some waves like for example 9, 10, 13 and so on. And the last point is, even if you spam Flowers later on in the game, they're still not looking good, right? 16 is like in the late game the only good wave where you can have Flowers, and then 17 they're bad again, 18 they're bad again, 19 they're bad again. And you still have on 16 the Mole and the Hermit that are still very strong on this wave to counter Flowers. So you have Flower Opener being quite strong, especially with the right ads. I would name Aqua in this sense, or maybe an Infiltrator that gives you the single target damage you would need for wave 5. But apart from this is not a great unit. Last but not least, RP and Sky Queen. We had buffs on them multiple times now, they're still not in a good spot. Why is that? You have an early mid-game unit. This unit is not scaling too well into the late game like you would have with other units, Starcaller, Asteria, Halo and so on. Obviously, it is only a tier 2 unit and therefore you cannot really compare it. But even the Daphne scales a lot better. Zeus is ranked really low because it doesn't scale too much either. But the Daphne, for example, is a tier 2 unit that scales quite well into the late game. But Sky Queen doesn't, and you need Sky Queen to be your carry unit because you build your whole setup around it. You cannot open with it, so this is already a few waves you can't play Sky Queen. After that, what is coming is a time where Sky Queen is quite okay, like 7, 8 is actually somewhere decent if you have the right tanks, because the damage output is still nice, but then there's 9, you're bad, 11, you're pretty okay together with 10, but then 12 and so on, you fall off again. You might ask yourself why you're falling off on 12, because if you full build for 12, fine, you're obviously holding, but then you just bad the next 3 or even 4 waves. 13 you don't have damage and you don't have tanks if you build for 12. 14 same, 15 same. So sometime you will have to start to build for 13, and usually you cannot just build for 13 after wave 12 because there you won't add enough value to actually be strong. This is why you in the mid game already have to start building for those crucial waves, 13, 14, 15, and after that you're falling off quite rapidly, and after 17 it's basically over for you. And therefore, if you cannot start with the Sky Queen and get this nice push and this nice strong early mid game you want with a Sky Queen to get ahead, to either overvalue because you don't have scaling, or to end the game early because there's your spike waves, you won't get far with the Sky Queen. And I think as long as it doesn't 2-shot wave 3, this is mainly gonna stay the same unless there's even more DPS buffs and you actually have to build something else in the first 3 waves and then just shift to the Sky Queens, but then you still have this problem that it's not scaling too well. Alright, I think that was enough talk from my side. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave me your comments in, leave me your opinion in the comments. I'm really interested in your opinion about the tier list. Check out the message sheet from time to time. It's always standing here when it was last updated. This time it was yesterday. And yeah, have a nice time. Bye bye.